In this step, we're going to talk about the information system. This is the system description task of the categorize step. And in this task, we're going to describe in detail the function of the system, how it works, and get that all documented, most likely in the system security plan. So let's jump into the video. In this video, we'll discuss task C1, system description, in the categorize step. Document the characteristics of the system is the task that we take on in C1 of the categorize step. Potential inputs include system design and requirements documentation, authorization boundary information, list of security and privacy requirements allocated to the system, system elements, and environment of operation, physical or other processes controlled by system elements, system element information, system component inventory, system element supply chain information, including inventory and supplier information, security categorization, data map of information lifecycle for information types processed, stored, and transmitted by the system, information on system use, users, and roles. Expected outputs for this task are documented system description. Primary responsibility for the task is the system owner. The system owner is supported by the authorizing official, the authorizing official's designated representative, the information owner or steward, the system security officer, and the system privacy officer. This does align with the SDLC. For a new system, it aligns with initiation or concept requirements and definition. And for an existing system, it aligns with operations and maintenance. It does have a cybersecurity framework alignment with the profile. A description of the system characteristics is documented in the security and privacy plans included in attachments to the plans or referenced in other standard sources for the information generated as part of the SDLC. And all we're saying here, this task is all about describing the information system. Normally, we're going to do this in the system security plan, and it's going to detail information about the system that describes it and illustrates its purpose, what it's going to do, the information types it processes, along with other types of information that helps illustrate the system and describe what it does. Duplication of information is avoided wherever possible. That means we don't want to write this information in a security plan and then in another document that supports the same functions, and then in a third document where it's going to be hard to maintain. If we can, we get this information into a single document and support the development of that document over time. The level of detail in the security and privacy plan is determined by the organization and is commensurate with the security categorization and the security and privacy risk assessments of the system. So we're going to say the documents will be detailed, but that level of detail is going to be less in a system that has less impact and less risk to the organization than a higher impact and a higher risk system. So it only makes sense that a high risk system or a high impact system is described in greater detail than a low impact or low risk system. And it goes back to the theory of where we balance our resources with the accomplishment of the goal. So we have a finite set of resources and we levy the most of the detail to the most important systems. Information may be added or updated in the system description as it becomes available during the system lifecycle, during the execution of the RMF steps, and as any system change, and as any system characteristic change. That's all we're saying is this document, normally the system security plan or the SSP, is what they call a living document. It's constantly maintained and updated. And you'll see one of the inputs is the categorization of the system. And we don't actually do that task until next in this step. So we'll be constantly updating this documentation and keeping it up to date to the real state of the system. There are a lot of examples of the type of information that goes into this document. Examples of different types of descriptive information that organizations can include in the security and privacy plans include descriptive name of the system and the system identifier, system version or release number, manufacturer and supplier information, individual responsible for the system, system contact information, organizations that manage, own, or control the system, system location, purpose of the system and mission business processes supported, how the system is integrated into the enterprise architecture, the SDLC phase the system's in, results of the categorization process and privacy risk assessment, the authorization boundary, laws, directives, policies, regulations, or standards affecting individuals' privacy and the security of the system, architectural description of the system, including network topology, information types, hardware, firmware, and software components that are part of the system, hardware and software, and system interfaces, both internal and external, information flows within the system, network connection rules for communicating with external systems, interconnected systems and identifiers for those systems, physical or other process components and equipment controlled by system elements, system users, including affiliations, access rights, privileges, citizenship, system provenance in the supply chain, maintenance or other relevant agreements, potential suppliers for replacement components of the system, alternative compatible system components, number and location in inventory of replacement system components, ownership or operation of the system, whether it's government owned, government operated, government owned, contractor operated, contractor owned, contractor operated, non-federal, which could be state, local governments, or grantees, the incident response point of contact, the authorization date and authorization termination date, and the ongoing authorization status. System registration information is updated with the system characterizations information, and that was done in task P18. References for this task are Special Publications 818 and the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. In this module, we discussed task C1, its inputs, outputs, roles, responsibilities, SDLC, and Cybersecurity Framework lifecycle alignment, the system description, system detail, documentation update, some examples of what goes into the SSP, and references. And those examples are important. In the lab, you'll have an opportunity to complete a system security plan in the documentation phase of that plan. And that's generally the front matter, and we consider that about the front 20 or so pages where we fill out this information. The lab also contains a checklist that you can use to identify where this information comes from. It's hard to start with a blank piece of paper and have all this information come right out of your head. So what we do is we keep track of the information. We ask the system owner. We go to meetings about the system. We gather this information over time, and we continually update the document. So as we find out more information about the system, we update the document. We continually update it till it's ready. So in the lab, you're going to have an opportunity to put your hands on a system security plan and start filling out this information. You'll see that sometimes it's easy to get the information, and sometimes it's going to be a little harder, and sometimes, as with the categorization of the system, you're going to have to develop that yourself. If any of this doesn't look familiar to you, I'd go back and watch the video again. If it makes sense, jump in the lab and start looking at the documentation. If you're just watching the videos of this, on to the next video, and we'll see you there.